you guys went down to Puerto Vallarta, man? He's like, are you guys crazy? You guys get pulled over by the federales? He's like, what happened? He's like, you guys are just crazy doing that. So welcome everyone to the Tim and John show. So it's been a while since we've done one of these. I was off gallivanting around Mexico. I actually drove there to Puerto Vallarta and back, which was quite the journey and experience. But there's been no shortage of news. And one of the things that's in the news big time now is inflation. Everyone's talking about it. First, they were telling us we didn't have it. Then they were telling us it was only going to get a little bit of it. Then they started telling us it was good. And now they're saying it's here, but it's only going to be here for a little bit. And let's go to Joe Biden talking about inflation and what he is going to do about it.
I seem pretty confident that inflation is temporary, but if you're pumping all of this money into the economy, couldn't that add to...
No, look, here's the deal.
No,
Moody's
pumping money into the
today,
economy
Wall
doesn't
Street
cause
firm, not
inflation.
some liberal think tank, said if we pass the other two things I'm trying to get done, we will, in fact, reduce inflation. Reduce inflation.
Right.
Reduce inflation. Because they're going to be providing good opportunities and jobs for people who, in fact, are going to be reinvesting that money back in all the things we're talking about, driving down prices, not raising prices. And so it is. I sincerely mean this. Prices are up now, and they're up, for example.
Reduce inflation. Reduce inflation. Reduce inflation.
We'll print money and reduce inflation. When did that ever
like
work?
if he just says it enough times, like it's gonna be true, like the Pygmalion
Hey, you gotta
effect or
repeat it
something.
repeat it 3 times. Then
Like he's
then
some
it's
sort of
back.
witch. Yeah, like he's gonna like click his heels 3 times and go back to Kansas or something. Like I don't know what's going on, but Joe Biden, it can only be outdone by Joe Biden. Here's another clip of him sounding like an idiot talking about inflation.
As our economy has come roaring back, we've seen some price increases. Some
He's even more robotic than usual in this. It's like he's like just got this script from like one of his speechwriters like 5 seconds before, and he's like just going over this, which is sort of like what I'm doing right now. Is I sort of winging this, but I'm just talking to you guys and like 1,000 people, or maybe 20,000 if it gets on Josh's channel. But I'm not talking to the entire world.
folks have raised worries that this could be a sign of persistent inflation, but that's not our view. Our experts believe, and the data shows, that most of the price increases we've seen were expected and are expected to be temporary. The reality is you can't flip the global economic light back on and not expect this to happen. As demand returns, there's going to be global supply chain challenges. We've seen that in semiconductors, which are used in automobiles. That global shortage has slowed vehicle production, creating a temporary spike in car prices. That's a real challenge. My administration is doing everything we can to address it. But again, these disruptions are temporary. Lumber prices are another example. They spiked early in our recovery, but in recent weeks, they began to fall. They've fallen by more than 50%. In the hospitality industry, prices are returning to where they used to be. Economists call all these things transitory effects, and they account for about 60% of the price increases we've seen over the last few months. I want to be clear. My administration understands that if we were to ever experience unchecked inflation over the long term, that would pose a real challenge to our economy. So while we're confident that isn't what we're seeing today, we're going to remain vigilant about any response that is needed.
I mean, I think that response will not stand the test of time very well, and that might end up sounding like the dumbest fucking thing any politician's ever said. Like we feel confident that we can control this. I mean, it's like saying like, Mike Tyson, if you keep running your mouth to me, you better watch it because I'm going to get in there and I'm going to do something to you. And then I get in there and I get knocked out in 2 seconds. There's nothing they can do. What can the Fed do? They can raise interest rates. Okay, well, great. They couldn't really raise rates during the greatest economy in the history of the world underneath Trump. Couldn't do it then without cratering everything. Couldn't do it the entire time Obama was there until he got voted out, and as Trump was getting in, he was a lame duck. And they had it go up one time. They couldn't normalize the balance sheet. Basically the past 13 years, they took it from I forgot like 4.2 trillion down to 3.6 before they had that basically renege and every single thing with that. I don't even know what the balance sheet even is today. It's like 7 point something, 7.2, 7.4. I'm sure John probably has a better idea of that.
Oh no, you're far off. You're far off, Tim. You're far off.
Money
Actually, it's crazy. It's just gone up quite a bit, and And right now, actually, let me pull it up on the screen here for you guys so you can see it. The current like balance sheet for the Fed as of the this is the 21st, so this is the actual official number from themselves is 8.24. And as you can see, Tim, look at this, like it just skyrocketed. And look at this versus, like this was the 2008 crisis. It's slowly, very slow to increase, right? But look at the trajectory here on the initial, like they're in some trouble here. I
And
don't
it's
think they
also
got
important
everything
to
under
point
control, to
out
be honest. But
there is like that 2 or 3 year stretch where it was stagnant. It was during that stretch that all of the other central banks
yeah,
in the world basically then started jacking theirs up like immensely. Like Bank of
yeah, because they're
Japan
all
started.
colluding, right? Yeah,
All right, so do you want to get back to the inflation talk? I know you
yeah.
had some articles that you wanted to show. So I know we got one here where if you want to pull this up, the Atlanta Fed's Bostic inflation rise likely transitory, and the Fed won't be preemptive. And we all know they're obviously not going to be preemptive. I mean, they've signaled that they're going to have the symmetrical inflation where they make there's not even any like tangible goals of what they're even going to do. But what are they going to do? I mean, there's nothing that they can do. And we sort of, not to beat this with a dead horse, but there's literally nothing they can do in order to both, fight inflation and, keep this whole fake, stock market economy, rolling as it's been going on. So, but yeah, do you want to go over some of the articles that you had sent over?
Well, so Bostic was actually talking to NPR in an interview, and what he said that they're wrong on the transitory inflation. They believe that now it's going to be 6 to 9 months that it's going to continue. And he said that in a NPR. I don't think this might be the NPR interview, but he was mentioning that it looks like they might not be 100% right about the inflation. And also here's from LinkedIn. This one here is BlackRock is all over the news this morning. CEO Larry Fink is telling anyone who'll listen, inflation in fact is not transitory per the Federal Reserve's terminology. But unlike a lot of talking heads with no skin in the game, Mr. Fink, who has seen assets under his firm management nearly double to almost $10 trillion over the past 5 years, is putting his money where his mouth is. He's giving all salaried employees 8% pay rises next year, and this is highly noteworthy. So, yeah, it seems like Larry Fink uh, thinks that something is going on with inflation, that it's not so transitory, and that prices are not going to go down. Maybe they're not going to go down at all. And of course, like here, inflation expectations surge, hitting new high. And actually, if we go to that, Tim, like I pulled it up here when we were talking, I was going to mention it, but I can mention it now. If you see the official number is 5.40%, but like look who's around the U.S. with inflation numbers. It's not the usual suspects. Like look at this: Tunisia, Bangladesh, Iraq, Mozambique, Hungary, Mali, Sri Lanka, Burundi, Jamaica, Egypt, South Africa, like all these countries here, like these are third world countries, a lot of them with normal high inflation. But look at the United States; it's right in the thick of it. And then, of course, if you go up, you got Venezuela, Sudan, Zimbabwe, Lebanon, Argentina, Iran, Suriname, Syria, Angola. Like all of those countries at the top are serial inflators, and they've been caught before. But here's another. So we looked at the inflation. Okay, so the U.S. is way higher than a lot of Western countries. But take a look at this. This is noteworthy, I think, Tim, because if you look at this, I'm gonna mark it here. If you take a look at this group here, so you got Lebanon. So what's going on in Lebanon right now? I don't know if you guys have paid attention, but the military is giving tourists rides on their air, like on their helicopters and stuff, to actually pay their employees in the military. The whole government's bankrupt. They can't even afford pencils at their local airport to actually, when you come in, to write down like your uh, paper that you get when you travel, let's say to Canada from the US and so on, like the customs papers. They don't even have that. And look at their spending. So they have a government deficit of 16.50%, right? Well, here's Canada, 15.90% deficit. The US has 14.90 and 14.30 in the UK. That's three of the biggest, like really big economies. They're G20 countries, and they're together with Lebanon. Now, when you take a look at like Suriname was one of the hyperinflators. They were at 12.9. They're less. Of course, Japan is up there, but you see a lot of Western countries, like everybody was bailing everybody out, right, Tim? And so what's going on is that these guys are like we're in some real trouble here, I think. And the problem with inflation, when you look at history, is that if it really gets out of hand, and if you get like a link broken, which is I call the trust link to the currency, if people see enough loss of their currency versus their salaries, that they're starting to really suffer heavily when it comes to food. Like people are suffering already. Tons of unemployed, both in the US and Canada. And when they see their food prices go up to so much that they probably got to remember the Yellow Vest movement initially, before they had the crackdown on protests, which is actually back again because of mandatory vaccination, that there was people there saying that we can't afford to feed ourselves anymore. That is the number one key. When people are starting to struggle to feed themselves, feeding yourself is the number one thing as a human being. If you starve, if you can't get water, you're dead. So you could lose your house, you could lose a lot of things, but like losing food and water and be able to feed yourself, that's kind of important. So I think that we're in for some severe problems, and what could happen is a trust shock where people say like, well, my current salary is not going up, and let's say that the inflation stays at 5 till 10%, whatever it'll be, it's probably a lot more in grocery stores, right? Like here locally, it's probably like from 5 till 15% in Canada here in local grocery stores this year. And when you have that hit, that's a massive hit. And then if you're already thin on your budget, like I personally, I don't have a problem. But I'm thinking about the everyday person that lives on like a lower wage, and especially minimum wage. They are gonna be like, yeah, I can't really afford to almost feed myself anymore. And that's when the trust link breaks. Like I can't accept this currency anymore. So people will try to look for alternatives. Like, oh, can I use Bitcoin maybe, or can I use gold or silver? Can I use anything? Or maybe like the lady that was in Venezuela that was working a high-paying government job. She had to quit that job in order to pay her rent, and she went to the streets selling coffee. It was as simple as that, because commodities always keeps value, and your currency salary does not, because it gets depleted and loses value, right?
I mean, I'm not sure if Arthur Diamondhand wants to get into, I believe that you were telling me that you were watching some of the Elon Musk, Jack Dorsey, Kathy Wood, B Word conference that they were having. Where was that conference anyways? Were they all there in person, or were they virtual, or can you tell us more about that?
It was a virtual meeting.
Did they talk about El Salvador making Bitcoin legal
They
tender?
they touched on it. They barely mentioned it.
Yeah.
They
Did you have any clips from there that you wanted to play, or not sure if I don't want to put you on right there on the spot. It's okay if you don't have them.
I got two really good ones. Probably the best ones are Elon's closing thoughts and Jack's closing thoughts.
This is Jack Dorsey of Twitter, just so people know.
Yeah, let's listen to this video.
Elon Musk, I gotta say, looks like shit there. I mean, just in that little still frame, but I don't know. But anyways, we're not here to judge him on his looks. So let's hear.
Jack looks like a gangster now with that shaven head. He's a tough guy.
He's part of like a motorcycle club or something he just got out of. And Kathy's like, how did I end up here?
Creates world peace, or helps create world peace. I mean, Elon said it earlier. Like we have all these monopolies of violence, and the individual doesn't have power. And the amount of cost and distraction that comes from our monetary system today is real, and it takes away attention from the bigger problems. Some of the bigger problems that Elon is trying to solve, like get us to a multi-planetary humanity. All these distractions that we have to deal with on a daily basis take away from those bigger goals that affect every single person on this planet, increasingly so. So it may sound a little bit ridiculous, but like you fix that foundational level and everything above it improves in such a dramatic way. So it's going to be long term, but my hope is definitely peace.
Well, that's an interesting point, Tim, because I always make the point is when you have a toxic monetary system like the fiat currency, it just poisons everything that it touches. So like you know, if you have a fixed measurement, you know, it's like building a house. If your meter like or inches constantly changes like the length of it, you know, like how can you build a house? Like it's the same in inflation. How can you live your life, you know, with constantly changing inflation because of the change of supply of currency?
And I think I was supposed to play this one actually first, but
Yeah.
here we go. This is Elon Musk.
Or you know,
Yeah.
some of the cryptocurrencies will make the future better, most likely. It's not, you know, I always think of these things in terms of probabilities, but I think it's probably better for there to be a prosperous Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, maybe some others in the future.
Doge.
And
It's shilling Doge.
an empowering effect for individuals, and increase the power of the individual relative to government. And really, you know, if you think of government is just a corporation in the limit. So sometimes some people are like against corporations, but for government. It's like, guys, government is just a corporation in the limit. It's the biggest corporation of all, and it's got a monopoly on violence. So if you don't like corporations, you should really hate government.
I gotta say that. I mean, I really like that, but
Yeah.
I am somewhat shocked that he would actually come out there and say that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's to downplay the fact that he's, you know, having Neuralink that's going to go reading your brain. You're going to have Starlink that's
Or
going to
with
track trace
Dorsey
value
talking
everywhere.
about, yeah, and with Dorsey talking about individuals matter when he censors them on Twitter.
Yeah,
Right.
and so I mean, all these guys, you know, are definitely tied in with the man. But you know, there's a certain, and I gotta say, Elon Musk looks really off in that clip. He looks, I don't know, looks like an alien. Like maybe he's
But
doing.
I love what they're saying. Like, don't get us wrong. I think we all here love what they're saying. Like, it makes so much sense. You know what they're saying, but I don't know if I could trust those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do we want the other clip where it's Elon, Jack, Kathy, Elon's version of Occam's razor? Not sure what that is. Is that worth playing?
Not really. Elon just gives his like he explains briefly what Occam's razor is. Then he says he has like his version of Occam's razor. And wouldn't it be funny if Dogecoin became a proprietary coin because the coin that was created as a joke to make fun of it turns out to be the leader? That's like his ironic version of Occam's razor.
Okay. Well, you know, it would be hilarious, wouldn't it, Tim, if Dogecoin became the world reserve currency?
It wouldn't be that hilarious because I don't own any. So you know, hopefully.
I do have a little bit actually. Like I of course I have like my altcoin like little basket that I hold with a whole bunch of crap coins.
Yeah, and it really would be funny for Mr. Segerson, who sold a shit ton of it a few years ago and would be like a billionaire if he didn't sell it. But oops, you know, there you go. So if you guys enjoyed that clip, please head over to timandjohnshow.com to watch the full episode. You can also get the audio version on the website as well, in addition to your favorite podcasting app. At timandjohnshow.com, you can also sign up for our email list, which is the first place you'll gain access to our long format shows. These shows are self-hosted, so if you want them first, you have to be on the email list or frequently check our website. You won't get the videos first, but you can also find them on odyssey.tv, lbry.tv, and bitshoot.com. And if you are happy with getting the clips after everyone else, then you can keep watching us on YouTube, in which case we ask that you smash that like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and turn on all notifications. Thank you.